Welcome to the Public Art for Neighborhoods Community Connection Grants Application Workshop. My name is Julia Moore. I am the Director of Public Art at the Arts Council of Indianapolis, and assisting me this morning is Bailey Peha, is from our Grant Services Department. And we are the ones that, if you have any questions about this program, we're the ones that you're going to ask. So there are actual people behind us, and you can actually talk to us. In this workshop, we're going to talk about a new grant program that can help communities work together with artists on projects that benefit them both. As we go along, please enter any questions into the chat box. And if you're following on Facebook Live, you can enter questions into the comments section, and Bailey will be answering them. We'll get to as many as we can during the workshop, and whatever we don't have time to address, we're going to add to our frequently asked questions document, which you can find on our website. We can answer them later, or we can also reach out to you individually and talk about your question in more detail. If we seem to ignore a question, we may have already planned to answer it later in the workshop, so just be patient. This workshop is being recorded and will be on our website in a couple of days. The website is indiearts.org/PAFN. And there will be a link to this workshop. And we're going to have new workshops every 2 weeks. It's mostly the same content, but feel free to access any workshop from the past. And if there is one in the future, please feel free to go ahead and register for it. Okay, Bailey, next slide. So before we start, let's do a thumbs up to see how many people in the on the workshop are artists. Do a thumbs up. And oh, I see one pop up. Awesome. And another one. Excellent. Thank you very much. And how many are representing neighborhoods or communities today? I don't think we have a lot of people in the workshop. So I don't think anyone's representing communities, but just to let you know that this program is open to both artists and communities to apply. So as we talk, feel free to use the chat box or the comment section to introduce yourself, including your preferred pronouns and the neighborhood that you live or work in. We may be able to make a match between an artist and a community on the workshop today. And if you're on Facebook, please feel free to use the comment section as well. So here's what we're talking about today. We're going to introduce you to Public Art for Neighborhoods program and where the money comes from for these grants. We're going to talk about the Community Connections grant program itself. We're going to talk about who's eligible, the people that are eligible to apply, and the projects that are eligible to be funded. We're going to talk about how decisions are made and what the people who are making the decisions are looking for in the grant application. And then we'll also talk about how to apply, and we'll be showing you some screenshots from the actual application form. In addition to the workshop, there are many resources to help you with this grant on the Arts Council website. There is a downloadable frequently asked questions document, and there's an application packet that gives you lots and lots of detail. And we'll talk more about that at the end of the workshop. So, what is Public Art for Neighborhoods? Public Art for Neighborhoods is a city program that returns 1% of the value of the incentives that developers receive from the city, and it returns this money back to the source of the tax dollars that funded the incentive, which is the city of Indianapolis. So if a developer receives $5 million from the city to help them complete their project, and they usually get the money because the city believes that it's going to be beneficial in the long run, tax-wise or economic development-wise. So if they get this $5 million, they're required to contribute 1% of it, or $50,000, either in cash or as $50,000 worth of public art that they commission as part of their project. And the developer gets to choose whichever option makes the sense for them. So this is a city project. They've given anywhere from, I think the lowest has been about 2 or 3 million, and the highest has been in the range of about, I don't know, 17 million, something like that. And the Arts Council administers both sides of this Public Art for Neighborhoods program. So we help developers get approval for the art that they choose to commission. And then if they choose to contribute the cash, we make grants from the pools of funds that developers have contributed. And that's what this program is. The ordinance, it is mandated by a city ordinance, and the ordinance is very specific about the types of grants that can be made and how they're decided. And we follow that ordinance very, very closely. And everything that we do is determined by that ordinance. Okay. So what are the Community Connections grants? So because of the COVID-19 emergency and the urgent need to support racial justice efforts, we asked the city to release nearly the entire pool of developer contributed funds that have accumulated so far so that we can make arts grants now, very quickly as they're most needed. We have $50,000 available and requesting applications for any amount from $500 to $2,500. These are themed grants. Only projects related to addressing COVID-19 on a neighborhood scale or helping neighborhoods in their fight for racial justice will be considered. No other projects. You can't use this for money to do other things. You have to make a case that it has something to do with COVID-19 or racial justice. We're going to continually review applications and make decisions and grant funds very quickly so that needs can be addressed while they're still relevant. So if you have a project that it's like, I need the money in a month, this is a perfect opportunity grant program to get that going. We have deadlines every 2 weeks. And if the grant application is approved, cash to pursue the project can be in your hands as little as a month after you apply. So our goal is to make these funds available and useful to help these two very pressing community needs through this artistic approach. So who is eligible to apply? The point of this grant program is to enlist artists as active contributors to communities. And so it is a partnership grant. Artists and communities have to work together. All projects require both a lead applicant and an arts partner. The lead applicant is the person who's going to get the grant check, and they're going to be responsible for delivering the project. And that lead applicant can be either an artist or a collective of artists or a community-based organization. If it's an organization, the applicant has to be located in Marion County, and it has to be located in the neighborhood where the project will take place, and it has to have a mission to serve that neighborhood. They don't have to be a nonprofit, a 501c3 nonprofit organization. It can be like a neighborhood organization or any other community group. If it's not 501c3, that's fine, but it's not required. Artists have to partner with an organization, and organizations must partner with an artist. And the nature of this partnership has to be pretty authentic, and it's up to the application to demonstrate the authenticity of this partnership. The artist doesn't have to be from the community, but if they are, it helps the application. But the organization does have to be located and serve the neighborhood where the project is going to take place. So there are people who can't apply for this. Arts organizations cannot apply for this grant. And the reason is because we want to empower non-arts organizations and artists to work together. We have other project grants for arts organizations. You can check out our website, or you can just email Bailey and she'll be happy to tell you about those. If you're not sure whether your organization is considered an arts organization, just call us and we'll help you figure that out. Bailey works with our grants department all the time, and Bailey is the best person to talk to. Even though you can't apply for this grant, if you're an arts organization, you can be part of the project in the community capacity as long as you're not receiving funds for the grant. And the reason is it's important because of where the funds are coming from, that we separate the funds designated for these projects from the funds that we grant to arts organizations for their other work. Because these are city funds, schools, even if they're private schools, and units of city government can't receive them. But schools and public parks and places like that can be locations for arts activities as long as the activities are open to anybody. They can't just be limited to the students or the community that works at or attends that school. For-profit businesses cannot apply for these funds. but they can benefit in other ways. We'll talk about that in a minute, but we absolutely encourage awardees to purchase from their local businesses or to use them as venues for the arts projects. So let's talk a little bit about the projects that are eligible for a grant. These projects absolutely have to relate to COVID-19 or racial justice. These are the most important issues that are facing communities right now. And this is where artists are already working with neighborhoods. All the projects must be arts-based and they must pay artists for the work that they do. They can be any artistic medium: visual arts, music, literature, design, social practice, even food or fashion. We're defining art and artists really broadly for this grant because art looks different for different communities. The idea is that these projects respond to the needs and desires of the community. These are hyper-local situations and hyper-local responses. The grant application should demonstrate both the situation and why the arts-based response is helpful. So that's a tip, and the closer you can tie them together, the better chances you are of getting the grant funded. Bailey, you wanna shift a slide? Thank you. So here are some examples of some projects that were done somewhere else in the country that, because of the nature of that project, they could be eligible for a grant like this. They demonstrate a neighborhood-based response to COVID-19 or the fight for racial justice. We are not telling you that this is what we're looking for, so don't copy these. If these are just something that if a neighborhood here were to do them, they would probably get a grant because it does fit the kinds of things that we are looking to fund. And your community solution is going to be right for you. So the one on the left is in New Orleans. It's a donated community refrigerator that was decorated by an artist. The food in there is free for the tanking for everyone that's hungry. And then the house that's behind it is donating the electricity. So there's just a cord that's run there. So so this is a response to COVID-19 to help people that are going hungry because of COVID-19, and the arts-based response is to show support for the people through the art that's decorating the refrigerator. And the one on the right documents a daily sing-along for racial justice in a neighborhood in Washington, D.C. So this is something that an organization has sponsored. They do a daily sing-along, and then the sing-along doesn't last very long, maybe 15 minutes, and then the sing-along is followed by a discussion. So this is a way that the people in the community can get together, they can express themselves, they can have an artistic moment, and then on a regular basis, get together and talk about whatever's on their minds having to do with racial justice. And it helps forge bonds, it helps draw the community together, and it helps sort of organize what the neighborhood's priorities are. So these are examples: arts-based responses, different situations, but either of those, if someone here were to propose them, they would be eligible for the grant. There are things that can't be funded. So this is a project grant and it cannot fund general operating support for the applicant or the partner. We can't pay your rent, we can't pay your electricity bill. However, we definitely encourage you to pay yourself from grant funds for the time and expenses relating to make the project happen. And we'll talk about that a little bit later. But it can do a little bit of proportional salary support if it's an organization, for the amount of time and labor to make this project happen. Religious services and activities can't be funded, but activities that take place at a church can be funded. We definitely encourage churches and other places of worship to host arts activities for the community. You can't use the funds granted from this program to raise money for yourself or others. So you can't use grant funds to hire a band to play at your fundraising event, even if the fundraising event is raising money for COVID relief efforts in your community. So when you're thinking about, okay, what kind of a project do I want, and how can I make this work for my community? So just ask yourself some questions. So first of all, what's the situation in the community? What's really going on? What are the needs? And most importantly, how can I demonstrate those needs? And is there data to support what I'm seeing and what we're thinking and what we're talking about in my community. How can the arts make a difference? It's really important to understand what the arts can and cannot do, and to have this discussion between the partners ahead of applying. And arts are wonderful. I've spent my whole career doing them, but arts aren't miracle workers. Figure out exactly what you expect the arts to actually address and what's the right way to address them. Think about what artists are already doing. Who are the artists in the community? And is it something, and are they doing something related to COVID-19 or racial justice? And have they been doing it for free all along? Is this a chance to get them paid to continue doing it? If you're a community, do you like who's doing the work, and do you want to partner with them to do more, or to do whatever the next logical step is that maybe they've been doing for very little money? The next logical step needs a little more. Is this something that can help meet that need? For artists, you may have a great idea, but is this the right community, and is this the right situation for that idea? We do not recommend that you get an idea first and then shop it around to communities who aren't already familiar with you and your work. The relationship between an artist and a community should be organic and authentic and not forced. If you don't have a community relationship already, think about why someone who doesn't know you should trust you to have their interests in mind. And I know that's really hard to hear, but I've worked a lot with arts and communities, and that is often the first question that they ask. Think about, if you're an organization, are you ready to partner with an artist? Partnering with an artist means understanding that artists are creative people, and their approach may not be your approach. The partnership really has to be truly equal. Communities aren't just hiring artists to perform or draw, but to help solve a problem. And they should be open to what that means, and to be willing to take a leap with how an artist sees something. And that can be very difficult. You may have an idea of what you want the artist to do, but the artist is that problem solver and should be part of that solution as well. If you're an artist, understand that communities know their people and their situations really well, and they may already have a preconceived idea of how you fit in. You can take that knowledge and take that idea as a starting point, and then add what you can to take it to where they never expected to go. And as an artist, that is your strength. That's why this is a partnership grant. Everybody has their strength. Everyone has that communication, and they together, you guys can figure out a project that's going to meet the community's needs. Is the idea feasible? When you go into this process, have a strong idea of what you want to do, and make sure that it's both feasible and achievable within the funds and the timeline that you have available. One of the terms of this grant is that all projects have to be completed by May 31st, but your timeline may need to be set based on situations as they appear in the community and might need some more immediate action. My advice is to focus on what you can do, and make sure that you have the resources to do it. If you have a fabulous and ambitious idea, but no commitment to action, that's not as strong as a more modest idea that you can all get behind and make it happen because it's scaled to the time and the funds that you have. Think about whether you need additional money. Be very realistic about how much things cost. The most that you can get from this grant is $2,500. And if your idea costs more, spend the time to line up funds and help from others. And as you are looking at the grant application, you will have the opportunity to talk about the other people that you're bringing in and how much money they're contributing. Excuse me. Sorry. Can we engage the entire community? One of the things the reviewers are looking for is how much this project represents the desire of the full neighborhood or community. If it's just a couple of people who are behind it, it's not really going to work out well. So be sure to talk about how you can get everyone to fully participate, whether it's in developing the idea or participating in the activity or action. And then on the back end, evaluating it and figuring out what happens from there. And finally, do we have time to write the application? I am not going to lie to you, doing the application will take some time. Partners are going to need to work together to develop an idea and a timeline. You're going to have to research prices, reach out to a venue. You may have to line up more partners and funders, and then you have to actually sit down and write the application. The good news is you can reach out to us for assistance. We can evaluate your idea. We can point out areas where you might need to think a little bit harder or do a little bit more development on the project. And we can even review application drafts before you submit them. You might also think about leaving a little bit of extra time for other people in your community to read the application and give you some feedback. If you're an organization, see if the artist is interested in helping write the application, and make sure that as you're writing the application, you keep the May 31st project completion date in mind as well. So allow yourself enough time after you receive the grant to actually do the work before time expires. And things always take a lot longer than you think, and be sure to build that into your timeline. Okay. So at this point you might be asking, okay, this all sounds really good, but how will the grant decision be made? This is a really fair question. So the ordinance requires a 10-person panel that reviews the grant applications. It's a very diverse panel. It's got representation from arts, from architecture and design, from community development, and from neighborhood leadership. They've had a role in developing the grant program as well, so it reflects their goals and perspectives. All meetings are open to the public. If you apply, you'll be sent a link so that you can virtually attend the meeting where your application will be reviewed. You can listen to the discussion and you can view how they're scoring the application. The scores will be used to determine funding, and higher scores are more likely to have their project funded. There are 3 review criteria that are on our website and in the downloadable application packet, and we'll look at those criteria now. So this is what the panel is looking for and what they will be scoring on. So they're going to be, there's 3 criteria: meaning, capacity, and arts experience. Does the project meaningfully engage the community through the arts? Can it be completed successfully? Is there enough time, and is there enough money? And finally, is it creating a high quality artistic experience that's going to help the community deal with the challenge that is set up and explained in the application? And we'll talk about what high quality means in a second. And it's up to you, it's up to the applicant to make that case. You can write anything you want to support all of these criteria. A successful application will describe the community and their challenge well. It will describe the project in detail and how it meets the challenge using artistic strategies and techniques. And it will demonstrate that all the resources are there and available to pull it off. Your most important resource on this is your partnership. So use the application to convince the reviewers that the artists and the community are working together and that the result will have equal benefit for both. There is a downloadable fact document on the website. It has many, many more tips, and you can always ask us, as I mentioned, to comment on application drafts as you're writing it. We can let you know how well you're making your case and where we think the panelists are going to want to need more information. So at this point, let's pause for some questions. Are there any questions in the chat? Please go ahead and put them in chat. If you want to unmute yourself and raise the question, please feel free. Nothing? Okay, I guess I've answered all your questions so far. Great. Well, let's go and talk about the actual application. So in addition to a great description of your idea, which you should probably spend the most time thinking about, you're going to need to gather a few additional items. Since this is a city-funded project, we need to report back the results to the City County Council. And we will do this by referencing the districts that benefited and the amount of funding spent in that district. So you'll need to tell us your district and your councilor name. If you only know one of them, that's okay. Put it in and we'll find the rest. But on the application, there's a link that you can use. You put in your address where the project is going to take place, and then it'll tell you the council district and the counselor name. You'll also need to understand how much the project is going to cost and how much money you have available. So those are expenses and income. These are your project budget, and we'll talk about that in a little bit more detail in a second. Support letters are really, really important, and they are required. If you're applying as an artist, the community you partner with will have to write a support letter. If you're applying as a community organization, the artist will need to write a support letter. And the reason for that is this is another way to demonstrate the authenticity of the partnership and the commitment of each partner. Other support letters are optional, and they depend on the nature of the project, and the fact document talks about support letters and what kinds of support letters are good and what kind of support letters are not very useful. You'll also need something to document the artistic aspect of the project, and we'll talk about that in the next slide. So what is artistic documentation? This is information that you provide as part of the application that helps the panelists understand the nature of the arts project and the impact that it's likely to have. So they need to see what the artist typically does and how the project fits into their skill set. They need to get an idea of the artistic aspect of the project. So you can do this by showing us what the artist can do and has done and what they are planning to do for the project. And so if you have samples of the artist's previous work, like images, video, sound, that kind of thing, these are perfect. If you have an artist's resume or bio, an artist statement, that's another great addition. Because you can only attach a total of 25 megabytes to the application form, you may want to direct us to websites, YouTube videos, a SoundCloud account, or other online sources. And you can do that by creating a live link in a document, and usually a PDF document, and then just uploading that document as one of the artistic samples. If you don't know how to create a live link in a document, just ask, we'll walk you through that. If you have can you go back? Thanks. If you have sketches of the proposed design or photos or clips of a previous version of a project, those are great. If you have a photograph of the site where the project is going to occur, that's great too. Because of the narrative section of the application has a character limit, you might want to use the artistic documentation to go into more detail about the artwork. And more explanation. You can do a summary in the application and then use the artistic documentation to talk about some of the specifics. Okay. So let's talk about the grant budget for a moment here. So every grant budget is individual, and the right amount depends on the project, but keep two big principles in mind when you're constructing the budget, because as a community-based arts project, both of these are really, really important. And that is pay yourself and pay others. Value your own time and labor, and value the goods and services of other people. The whole point of this program is to circulate grant funds in communities, and everybody benefits when money is spent. So you can ask for any amount from $500 to $2,500, and you do not need to raise matching funds if what you're asking for is all that the project costs. If you can do the entire project from start to finish within that amount and within what we can give, that is great. Perfect. We also understand that your idea may cost a little bit more, and we're happy to have our funds be part of a larger project that other people are contributing to. In fact, that's really good for us to report back to the City Council, because it means that you're leveraging funds from the community. And so so leveraging is the word for getting other people to contribute because somebody else has contributed. You can use our funds to help out with another project that you already have going if it has to do with the arts and COVID-19 or racial justice. We ask that you are realistic about how much money it will take to make the project happen. And if our funds are part of a pool of funds, show how much of that pool our grant is funding and how much you've raised from others. And you can do this on the grant application form. And this is a screenshot of the budget section from the application form, so you can see what it is. So when you look at the application, you'll see that the only required expenditure is that you pay the artist, and we need to know how much total you are paying artists. That is a budget line. That can be your entire budget. That's fine. If all you're doing is, hey, we need money to pay artists to do something, that's great. Any other expenditures depend on the specific project that you're doing. The application form gives you 4 spaces to talk about 4 different kinds of expenses and 4 different kinds of income. We ask that you kind of group them together so that they make logical sense. And if you wanted to do a more detailed budget as one of your documentation items, that's okay, you can do that. So the only required income source is the grant amount that you're asking for. Any other income sources depend on how you plan to meet the expenses needed to make the project happen. Again, not required that other people contribute, but if the project you're proposing costs more than $2,500, which is the most we can give you, the panel does need to see where the rest is coming from, and also whether it is already secured or promised, or if you already have it in hand. The expenses and the income need to balance out. You must show income for everything that you intend to expend. And we will disqualify applications that don't show a balanced budget. Again, our staff can do a quick review and comment on your budget to see if it makes sense. The budget is the numbers version of the narrative that you're telling in the rest of the application. And both the budget that you're showing and the narrative in the application should describe the same project. I've done a lot of grant review, and that is probably the most common mistake, is that the budget and the narrative don't match. Okay. Excuse me. So here's the grant calendar with some key milestones. We're reviewing grants every 2 weeks, so you can apply whenever you're ready. The first deadline is this Friday. If you haven't already started working on the grant, it's probably too late to get one completed by Friday. But the next deadline is December 18th, so that should give you a little bit more time. And there are deadlines every 2 weeks until mid-March, so you can apply whenever you're ready. You can see that there are public review meetings. The next one is the 16th, another one on January 6th. We'll notify from everything that we got by December 4th. We will notify on December 18th. And then because the holiday is in between, the award checks aren't ready until January 8th. But then after that, checks will be issued every 2 weeks. There is a grant report due 60 days after you finish the project. So be sure to factor that into your project calendar. So this is, if you wanted to see everything in a grid format, you'll notice that there are 8 rounds of review following this calendar. You can see all of the deadlines for all the projects. This calendar is also available on our website and in the downloadable application packet. Everything works on a 2-week cycle. You can apply whenever you're ready. If you apply on, we have a deadline on December 4th. You can't make the 4th, but on Friday, but you can get it in Monday or Tuesday. That's okay. We'll hold it for the review period on December 18th. So literally you can apply anytime. It's to your advantage to apply earlier, and here's why. We have a pool of $50,000. As we make awards, the pool of available money will decrease. And if you wait too long to apply, all the money may have already been given away. The other reason that you should apply early is that if you don't succeed on your first try, you can revise your application and try again. You will have had the opportunity to listen to the discussion in the public meeting. That will kind of give you clues as to how you can improve your application. And then you can call us after and we will tell you why it was not successful, and hopefully it's something that you can easily fix. So 2 really good reasons to apply earlier. Okay. The application is online. It's a very simple form and you can submit it from any device. And we've set it up that if all you have is a phone, you can even submit it from your phone. We do recommend that you use a desktop or a laptop computer because the screen is larger and you can see what you're doing a little bit better. Most public libraries still have computers that you can use, although they're asking you to reserve time to use them. And then you probably also have to have a library card, which is free. There's 4 parts to the application, plus a checklist. And the good thing about an application is it's not going to ask you anything you don't already know, because it's your project. This is your opportunity to tell us about your project. But as we talked about, it does require a little bit of preparation. This is how the application starts. It's an overview of the grant of the grant purpose, and links back to full instructions that you can always flip back and forth to. We encourage you to visit the website and download the application packet and the fact document and read it to help you apply successfully. So after that initial information, you can see it asks you for information about the lead applicant and the partner. If the lead applicant is an organization, you will have to provide a description of it and its mission, just so that gives the panelists some context as to, you know, who the partnership is and what this is likely to accomplish for them. All applications must have both an artist and a community partner identified, or else it will be disqualified. So next comes the budget that we already talked about. And then after the budget, there are 3 narrative questions, and they're very simple. And these are them. What do you want to do and how will you do it? How will you work with neighborhood residents? And how does the project connect to COVID-19 or the fight for racial justice in the community? This is really important. You get to describe it in all the detail that you know right now. In the first question, what do you want to do and how will you do it? This is where you describe your partnership and your project in all the detail that you have. How will you work with neighborhood residents? This is where how you talk about how the project is important to the community and the connection between the artist and community as the project starts, as it happens, and as it finishes. And the third question is where you will tell the reviewers how this is the right project for this community at this time, and to talk about what the ultimate impact of the project will be. So talk about the origin story of the project, and try not to overstate the impact. Art can't solve everything, but it can help. And if it's part of a larger community initiative, talk about that as well. So when you go to the application, you'll notice that each question has tips on what information to include. And these tips are also in the downloadable application packet. Once you start typing into that blank, the tips will go away. So we recommend that you review the tips in the advance, use them to write your answers in a different document, and then copy and paste from that document into the blanks on the form. And if you have all that in a separate document, then if something happens to the form as you're typing it, the computers do break down, it doesn't get submitted in the right way, you have that and you can easily recreate your application without a lot of hassle. One really important thing about this is because public funds are being used in this, even though they're coming from developers, they are considered public funds. And it is a city program. So all applications are considered public information, and the public will be able to read your application. We're going to take out personal information like phone numbers, emails, and addresses on the copy that the public sees, and we won't include your demographic information, which is one of the questions on the form. On the form, it's optional, and we do encourage you to provide that, but the public will not see that information. You know how the public can be, so make sure that anything you say can pass the reporter test, which is if you don't want a reporter quoting it, think twice about how you're saying it. The public will be able to comment in writing on any application, and all comments that are received from the public will be read out during the review meeting for panelists to hear and consider. They'll also know the name and address of the commenter so that they can understand, is this someone coming from the community or is this someone coming from outside the community? And yes, you can lobby people to comment on your application. We'll send you a link to the public comment form. And yes, some people are going to take the opportunity to level some really unfair criticism. And that criticism usually takes the form of asking whether the money could be better spent elsewhere. And it's sad, but it happens. So to avoid that, make sure that your own community is well aware of and is in agreement with the project, and to understand the facts of the program. And they're these. It is city funding, but it doesn't come from public tax dollars. It comes from contributions from developers who made their individual choice to donate to this grant program. The funding is restricted by ordinance to only this purpose, neighborhood arts grants, and in no case would it have been available for the city to use for any other needs. So these are ways that you can answer critics in case they come up to you individually, but these are important aspects of this program. The review meeting is also public and will be available to view live via WebEx. You will not be able to participate, you won't be able to speak, and public comments can't be taken during the meeting. So all comments must be made prior to the meeting in writing. The meeting will also be recorded and posted on the grant website so that you can, if you happen to not be able to virtually attend while it's being conducted, you can look later online and see what the comments were about your application and about other applications too. And sometimes you can learn a lot by seeing how they review other people's applications. The scores that the panelists make are going to be visible during the review meeting after each application is reviewed. And then the scores will also be posted on the grant website so that that's, again, all of this information is public. It's very transparent. Unfortunately, you're not going to know during the meeting whether the grant is funded, but you will know whether your score met the 80% threshold to be considered. So in order, if your score is below 80%, then it will not be funded. If it's above 80%, you take a look at the amount of funds remaining in the pool, you rank the applications by score, and then start awarding money. After notifications have gone out to the applicants, funding decisions will be posted on the website. You're going to be the first to know about the decision. You will not learn it from other people. And we won't post decisions until after you've let us know that you've received our notification. So again, this is going to be very useful so you know how much people ask for. And in general, our goal is to provide the full amount that you ask for. If your score met the threshold and there's enough money in the pool after the applications are ranked for that round, you will get everything that you ask for. I think this is the end. So to remind you, this is what we talked about. We talked about the program, we talked about the grants, we talked about eligibility, we talked about how decisions are made, and we talked about how to apply. We can take more questions now, or feel free to contact us individually, and we've given you our contact information. If you want to talk about your idea or your budget, contact me. If you want general grant writing tips or are having trouble with the form, contact Bailey. You can also check the website. There's the downloadable program guide, a frequently asked questions document, and all the links to the application form and all the information from past grant rounds. At this point, are there additional questions that anyone has? Happy to answer them. Don't see anything. If you don't have to put them in the chat, if you're in the webinar, you can just go ahead and unmute yourself.
I think I'm good. Thanks for the information. I'm just gonna think about my idea. So
okay. All right. Well, give me, be sure to give me a call. This is why we're here. I think a lot of people who write grants don't realize that there are actual people you can catch. I mean, I write a lot of national grants, federal grants, and I contact their grant staff all the time, and they're really, really helpful.
Sure. I guess I have a quick question.
Sure.
I think Stephanie Robertson posted about Ivy Tech, and you responded. If I wanted the community to be Ivy Tech, but I'm a faculty member at Ivy Tech, could I be the artist but also the community be Ivy Tech, or would that be like a conflict because I'm like a member of that community?
If the community is Ivy Tech, will it be open to people who are not associated with Ivy Tech?
Yes. So I was thinking of a possible idea would be some kind of video project. And then it would be possible to submit in person and online. And so it would be easy for anyone to submit in the community, but there maybe like do some kind of outreach in the community as well. And so I would be more familiar with the Ivy Tech community in that I am like actually a member of it, or I'm a faculty member of it. But it would definitely be open. I would want to reach out to the wider community as well. Because I've been teaching there for a long time. So, but I don't live in that community. I live a little bit north of there. So.
One thing I think probably in that situation, Ivy Tech would be considered more of a site. So if you're using Ivy Tech's technology resources and, maybe projecting on their building or something, I would really call them more of a site than a community. And I would still ask you to investigate the actual neighborhood surrounding Ivy Tech and involve them, pretty directly in this.
Sure.
So most of your audience might be at Ivy Tech. We're really looking to impact a geographic community within Marion County. Ivy Tech is really more of a constructed community with people from all over the city, and so we really want to try and focus things geographically specifically. And think about but I think there's something really interesting about connecting how students are experiencing their own fight for racial justice and the impacts of COVID-19, and how the university and the community can potentially work together. So, Yeah.
That's kind of what I was thinking of. I'm currently working on a project with a school where I'm creating a music video, and I went into the school and recorded the students singing, and I'm making a montage of all that. So I kind of thought of, with that experience, going in and making a music and interview kind of montage of students, and maybe trying to work with the community as well. It's just kind of a formation of an idea. So, but we don't have a lot of community contacts at Ivy Tech, and it's something I would like to pursue. And there's probably some people at Ivy Tech maybe that would have more of a contact that I could work with at the school. So as a community partner.
And think about the nature of the project and the partnership, and maybe it's something, if they are already working with the community and the university is doing something in the neighborhood, think about how your project could potentially connect to that too.
Okay, great. Yeah.
Okay,
thanks.
Any other questions? Bailey, how are we doing on Facebook?
We got one question earlier in the webinar about something very similar to like YMCA teen program, but so hopefully Diana's question was helpful for him, and then I also told him to reach out to us.
And again, for YMCA, I think using a neighborhood organization that is more of a neighborhood branch of a citywide organization like YMCA. Think about that connection as why is it happening at that YMCA in that community, and to make that connection really close.
Yeah, but other than that, everything on Facebook's good. So if there's no more questions, I think we're all good to end.
All right. Well, thank you very much for attending. This has been a wonderful experience. This webinar is going to be this workshop is going to be posted on the website within a couple of days, and it will probably be available to view live from our Facebook page immediately. So thank you very much, and be sure to contact us with your questions. Bye now.